later. All right. I wrote up some items in the doc in 161. And obviously, like one of the big items that we need to finish first before we get to that issue is automated scheduled deploys to staging. But that can't really move until we decide how are we going to promote things to Canary, I would say. Because us just automatically deploying to staging will not bring any real benefit, I would say. I think like there is already a situation where I think staging is not sufficient for us. I think we'll probably have to have another non-production environment, but to keep it simple, let's try and think about how would things look when we are happy what the staging is actually producing when we deploy a newest nightly package, and what are our decisions, what kind of decisions do we have to make to promote to Canary?
So I personally, I don't think I have any less confidence in a nightly build off master than I do in the RCs, to be honest. Like, I feel like it's probably the same amount of risk as far as deploying to staging. I'm not saying we shouldn't have another environment, but for this, but I think it probably, I feel pretty comfortable deploying nightly to staging, or at least as comfortable as I do deploying RCs to staging.
Mm-hmm. Do you have the same confidence to promote to Canary?
I think as long as we have a rollback that's fast, and I think with Canary it is relatively fast, and with the new Canary routing, it's relatively safe, although we have had instances where deploying to Canary can do damage to Redis, which can screw up everyone.
Mm-hmm.
But in all of these cases, I don't think it would have been caught earlier if we delayed getting the change on Canary. So with that in mind, I feel like, no, I feel like we should just deploy to Canary and roll back fast if we need to, and ensure that we have enough checks in place to do that.
Mm-hmm. But is there a situation where we are on Canary and we don't want to roll back? Or we are on Canary and because of an issue we found, we have a delay in promoting the next item from staging to Canary?
Yeah, I mean, I think Canary is our best opportunity to roll back because there are fewer servers, and also we don't do post-deploy migrations.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say we, well, I guess it's a bit early to consider it. We need to get the staging first, but I would say it comes shortly after we do these staging deploys. I would say we just do Canary, you know, and I think once you roll back Canary, then you wait until the fixes are on staging, and then you promote again.
Yeah, then we have a problem of new items accumulating in the next batch of
yeah,
deployments.
I see that as well, but at some point we have to like move forward. I mean, this is the same problem we have with RCs, right?
Mm-hmm. And what we try to do there is, that's right, what we are doing there is we have a stable branch,
Yeah.
and we create an RC out of only that. So this is where my other proposal comes in, where we would have a simple way or simpler way for people to know what version or what SHA all of the components are running from. So even if we go and roll back Canary, we still, and we found like an item, we want to roll back Canary. We still want to redeploy that same package plus the fix to
Yeah.
Canary
Yeah.
to ensure that we don't bring in more items accumulating, right? Like, you know how many commits are going in daily. So it would be not unexpected from us to not stop the train, but at least say, well, we have confidence about these 15 items and that one item was broken. So how about we create a version of GitLab that will deploy just with that fix? So
I think the two questions then are where in the pipeline do we create the stable branch, or a branch for which we say we're only taking small incremental changes to fix regressions, and how long that time window is? Those are the two questions. And right now, the answer to those two questions are before we deploy to staging is when we do it. And the time window is from the 7th to the 22nd.
Right. And my answer to this new situation is we never create a stable branch.
Yeah.
And the window is 1 day. So we have a window of, we say that we want to deploy to staging daily, right? And we kind of agree that, well, I don't know whether we agree, but the discussion is that everything that is on staging today will be on Canary tomorrow, right? At the same time, we want to promote the previous day's work, right? So say that the item that we are deploying to Canary tomorrow is, for some reason, has a broken item. We are already on day 2 on staging, right? We already have a new package on staging containing new changes. Well, what I want to happen is to say to developers, well, your fix needs to go into master, right? Like whatever fix you're working on, you're targeting master regardless, but you have an additional requirement, and that is branching off the commit that we previously deployed to Canary. You need to backport this into this temporary new stable branch, whatever you want to call it, temporary branch containing only this fix, so that we can build off of the head of that branch, right? Like containing everything that we already deployed plus the fix. And we can do a fast promotion to Canary, or maybe we have another environment in between that will only be used for these type of things. But the idea being, we already know that the package worked. We know that the fix is merged. So we want to roll that quickly to Canary. As soon as we roll that fix to Canary, we can verify that that one instance is resolved, and we can then promote this day's item to Canary.
Yeah, I see what you mean, and I think we're kind of talking about the same thing. I think what you just described to me is pretty much the same as a stable branch.
Yeah, so please let's make sure that we don't use the same terminology as right now, because I think that's possibly going to confuse us. Because right now, stable branch is for us a synonym for a long running frozen branch, and I don't want to do that. Like I want to be always branching off master and having those short-lived branches.
Right. Okay, so let's not use stable branch. And I think but what you're saying is, we take the commit that we deployed to Canary, and we create a branch from that commit, and then developers will check in changes.
Correct.
And then we build a new package from that, and we deploy that update to Canary.
Correct.
I guess where we may differ a little bit is I was actually I was thinking we would be a bit more aggressive and do this on the production stage, not the Canary stage. So Canary would continue to get daily snapshots of master, and we would do, actually, I was actually thinking post-deployment patches on prod until Canary is, until we're comfortable with Canary, and then we would just promote it again, which would bring with it a whole bunch of other changes.
Right.
If
So
we're not to be that aggressive, then yeah, I think what you propose sounds good to me.
I think that would be a big jump. I think it might make sense to do that at some point, but I think we can't be that aggressive at the moment, given, you know, I wouldn't say all the unknowns. We've seen quite a lot of different things, but maybe because we've seen quite a lot of those different things, we need to, I wouldn't say, this is not playing it safe. This is definitely not playing it safe. This is more being cautious in how we promote things, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
So another requirement here that I found out today is before we actually go to production environment, in this case, Canary is production environment, we have a compliance requirement for this promotion to be approved.
You got it, really. So
Mm-hmm.
by whom?
So people not involved in the release process. So we are the ones bringing in this change. We are required to, I wrote this lower down, by the way, Jared. Mm-hmm. Anyone that is not carrying in the change. So this could be production, this could be security in case of security fixes and so on. But there needs to be a documented way or documented approval of moving an item to production environment.
Okay.
That's another gotcha here.
What governs something being approved or not? Like, is it just someone saying, oh, yeah, sure? Or is it like something that says, this checks a set of boxes for us, we're okay to approve this?
I don't know about the set of boxes. What I found out is that we need to have whatever is done in staging, or rather whatever is inside of the package, inside of the release artifact, is not altered. So this is also the case for patches, right? Like patches also need to be approved, because as soon as it changes the source code of our environment, it needs to get through additional improvement.
So far, that sounds like something that can be automated. That way, it's not a huge deal. It just takes some work to get that done.
It needs to be, yes, that part is true, but the actual approval needs to be human. It can't be auto-approved by a bot.
Okay. But anyway, back to what you were. I'm still trying. I'm trying to make sure I understand what you're thinking, Marin. And I put some notes here underneath the first bullet. So you're saying before we promote to Canary, or maybe after we promote the first time to Canary, we create a branch at the commit, and then any critical bug or regression fix would not only go into master, but go onto this branch, and we would cut a new package. What I'm missing is what happens next. Do we promote that package? Does that package go directly to Canary, or does it go through staging? Because now we're going to be, and is this why you said that we need like another environment?
Yes, because of the compliance, right? Because there is a requirement that anything that goes to production can't go directly. It needs to go through non-production environment first, and it needs to be approved after deployed to non-production. This is why staging is important. So we can't be doing anything directly to Canary anymore. It needs to be to staging. Let me change that. It needs to go to non-production environment first before it goes to production environment. And I found out about that today, by the way. So.
Do you think, and just as a thought experiment, can that environment share the Postgres database and
No.
Redis cache cluster?
Absolutely not. That's production.
No. Okay. This is,
What
I mean,
we
yeah.
could do is leverage what you had built previously. Staging
Well.
Canary.
Well, that shares. Okay, so we could have maybe one staging database, one staging Redis cluster, and then the problem where we run into problems is Sidekick, because there's really no way to isolate Sidekick without namespaces, and there's an open issue for this, and I don't think it's going to be resolved soon. If we can kind of like gloss over the Sidekick problem, yeah, that would work.
Okay.
I mean, it sounds like we just need a new staging environment from the sound of this.
I think that's.
It's unfortunate, but it sounds like we just really need to do that.
Yeah, but new environments are expensive.
Exactly. As unfortunate as it sounds, for this process to be successful, I really think we need a new separate environment with its own data and all that.
I don't know. I guess maybe we could call it pre-prod. We discussed having a pre-prod environment for this
I
sort
don't
of thing
care what we
before.
call it. We just need a different environment.
Well,
Both Johns, actually. Yeah, I think so too. The problem is any sort of work like that delays the work we want to do. But apparently the inconvenience is has to be accepted because we have those requirements.
but what if going back, what if we don't do this branching on Canary? What if we just do patches on prod and then until we're ready to take a promotion from Canary? It seems like that solves the problem. I mean, it's a little bit more dangerous, but I don't know.
Sorry, I didn't understand that one.
So the current proposal is that we deploy to Canary, and this is where we create a branch, and then we take small incremental changes for critical bugs and regression to limit the amount of commits that go to prod. What I'm suggesting is that we do patches, like post-deployment patches on production until we're ready to promote Canary, which would have those fixes plus everything else. And like, it just seems to me that if we're trying to get to full CD, we should be deploying from master, and not have this feature freeze window. And I still don't think I understand how long this window would be. You said a day, but how does that work exactly? Like we would freeze, we would create as soon as we deployed a Canary, we would let it go to production and soak for a day, and then do incremental changes for a day, and then unfreeze.
So okay, wow, you added a lot of things there. So if you take a look at I should have added another branch to the graph I created and say production. So basically you see how this would work. Basically the day 2, right? In the day 2 we have the purple circle. That would be day 3 in production. Right, so day 1 purple on staging, day 2 purple on Canary, day 3 purple on production. Basically, before this arrives, so from the moment on staging to the moment we have this on staging on production, it would be 2 extra days, allowing us, 1 day on staging to actually find anything and stop the move, 1 day on Canary to do the same, right? Because it's going to be like way more traffic and so on, and ideally, by the time this would arrive on production, we will already have day 2 plus fix deployed on Canary, vetted, and then moved in time to production. I know this is not continuous delivery, but hey, like one step at a time.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess so. What I'm proposing is that we would just do hot patches on production until we're ready to promote Canary with the fixes plus whatever else.
So this is obviously only for hot fixes we can do, and that is backend code.
Yeah, so that's also, I guess, a problem. Although, I mean, we haven't really come across a situation where we've had to deploy fast, except for hot patches. Like, I don't know. Like, I guess we just gotten lucky so far. We haven't really had a situation where this was necessary.
Well, you know, we are going to expose new problems when we do this, because I obviously dev.gitlab.org is not being used that much, but it's used enough to actually observe some of the problems in time before they actually reach the release. You can expect that this is going to increase in volume as soon as we speed this up. Alternative is to do a slower rollout so that we can get a feel of what is going to be done. So say, instead of deploying every day on staging, say every 2 days, and then promote once a week to Canary, and then promote, but that's way slower, and I don't want to do that. I want to do faster deploys.
What if, just as a thought experiment, entertain this thought. What if we created a new environment that was just a single instance?
For production, for staging?
Yeah, if not for stage. I think there's value in having master go to staging daily. Full HA environment. For this gap where we want to take small incremental, this basically the window where we want to take small incremental changes. What if instead of going directly to Canary, we go directly to a single instance server? We call it pre-prod, whatever. Very low maintenance, like we don't have a full HA topology, and then we go to Canary. Do you think we could sell that?
I think it might be interesting to check.
Because if we do that, then we're talking like it's very easy, right?
What kind of data would we be able to import? Would we be able to import like the database of staging, for example, or?
I mean, a year ago, I was able to import the entire production database on one single VM, like a single omnibus install. I think it's a bit crazier now. We have about double the spaces we had a year ago, I think, on the database. But
I'm only interested in staging because production database has other consequences, right? Like we will have to go to compliance, security, and so on. And I think we need to limit ourselves to non-prod.
Well, that's easy because staging is about a year-old stale data, so it's sure.
Okay.
Yeah, we could definitely.
I mean, we need to think of something, right, to unblock ourselves, and then in parallel, I already triggered a question of how can we do this with staging or another environment. So I'm kind of waiting for that answer from the compliance team.
Yeah, no, I think what makes a new environment expensive is the HA topology of Patroni plus Redis plus Sidekick, all of these single server, that's cake. I mean, we could even do like an HA database and a single server, and it'd still be a lot less overhead for us. So yeah, so I think that sounds like if we can sell that, then I think that would be a good way to go.
To repeat, basically, best case scenario, we have this graph that says day 1, we deploy something on staging. Day 2, that same purple circle is deployed on Canary. We verify nothing is broken on Canary. Day 3, we have the same thing in production. So this is the best case scenario. And then that goes for every deploy. Everything lands in production. Now, where things start to complicate is in case we didn't find something on staging, we are on Canary, and we found a regression that we find is gonna cause a lot of pain for our users. We need to find a way not to stop the move, but say that from the commit that is currently on Canary, developers need to do 2 things. One thing is fix this in master, so it goes into the next day's deploy on staging. And the next thing is, second thing is port this to a branch that is made out of that SHA that is currently at Canary. Once that is done, we create a release out of that branch's head. And instead of deploying this to staging, we deploy this to a one box on staging, right? Like something that is in between staging and Canary to verify that this is okay. And then deploy this on Canary, verify that the broken item is actually resolved, and then promote that version to production. Right?
Yeah.
I will draw another one of these because I think they were very useful for me to kind of visualize this problem. Okay. Yeah. Another question for you, Jarv. What if that one box actually just reuses the staging environments database, as in connects to the same database?
Yeah, I think we run into the problem with Sidekick, I think.
Yeah, it's again Sidekick.
Yeah, so I don't think, I mean, not to say we couldn't, it's better than nothing, and I think we can probably sell it. I don't think people understand this architecture well enough to complain. At least the people who are complaining don't understand it enough. But I think we should probably.
I mean, do we care what data it's on it? Why can't we just use the fake data that we use when you spit up GDK locally? Or am I being too naive?
We do care about what data is there because the items. So theoretically, if all developers did their work correctly, they would have already noticed this breakage in their local data. The problem is staging brings in another set of data or larger data set that all of a sudden their item is breaking down on. So we would want them to verify that on that same data set. I mean, none of this would be necessary if we had in development a large enough data set that developers would be able to observe on, but we are really far away from that.
Yeah. I kind of think we're probably going to need a separate environment for this. Also, doesn't this cause a problem with migrations and things like this? Like, who knows? No, granted, we've never had to have a patch that required a migration, but
yeah. But never say never. We never needed
front-end.
Yeah, front-end.
So we have an issue open for Sidekick namespacing. I'll dig that up, but I don't think that's going to.
You don't need to dig it up. I know where it is. I know what it is, and I know where it's blocked. I also know that. Yeah, it's not a small amount of work. Okay. So if we do it that way, we might have a way in to resolve things in case of emergency. One place where this breaks down, does this break down at security workflows? It does. It does. It does. I'll tell you how. Oh my God. So first of all, if staging is deployed continuously from master, that means that master requires security fixes in it as well. Which means that we have a divergence between our development on gitlab.com and dev.gitlab.org, or anything, right? It doesn't have to be dev.gitlab.org. We have separate repositories we deploy from versus repositories we develop in. That means if we don't do a security release quick enough, we'll have a large backlog of things to deploy on later. So we are back into the situation we have now. Alternative is, as soon as we have a security patch, we don't pause anything when it comes to deploys to staging Canary production, but we have security patches continuously applied until we have a release that we can publicize, and then that would mean that a master would receive the fix from security merge requests.
Just as a thought experiment here, so we're deploying staging from master, and when we create a security fix, we don't merge that change into master until it's published right now, and that's the problem, right? Because staging then will never get that security fix, and until
Things is merging into master.
Until it's merged into master, and yeah, I mean, unless if we always, yeah, I think what we can do is probably when we just pause the pipeline, right? Like, isn't that?
Yes, but I'm afraid if we pause the pipeline, we run into a situation where we are going to have, like, say, for example, we had a 7 days of security release, right? That means that we have 7 days of not deploying. This brings us back to our current known situation, right? Of having things build up and then us deploying a week or 2 weeks later, right? Once you actually unpause the pipeline, then you get like this torrent of things into your environments again. So pausing is something that we really, really should not be doing, if possible.
We can require for all security patches, I mean, we can apply them as patch files on top of master after deployment is done. It's kind of a bit of it adds a bit of overhead though.
But security patches or security releases are always an overhead because they have a different nature.
I just think that given that master is a moving target every day, it means potentially a new patch every day, right? If the file changes every day.
That's the worst case scenario. So for example, say we have a security vulnerability inside of our project RB. Project RB is one of our biggest and most important items that changes fairly often.
Yeah, right. I will say another option is that we somehow cut off staging from the outside world. That makes this problem go away.
How do we get this promoted to Canary then? Because the problem is not just staging. The problem is how all of this reaches. No, the problem is not even staging being accessible. It's the fact that we now have diverging projects. I mean,
no, I just assumed that if we have the security release process sort of stays the same. Like as soon as we create this branch when we deploy to Canary, then security patches would be applied to that SHA, whatever is deployed to Canary, and then once it's released, it kind of makes its way to master, which will then make its way to staging. The problem, I think, the only problem we have is this window of time where staging is not patched and has a new deployment from master every day, which makes it very difficult to keep up with like patch files. If we cut off staging from the public internet, then I don't think it's an issue.
I think we have, like maybe I'm misunderstanding JR, but I think we then still have the same issue because we would have to cut off Canary as well. Right?
Canary is being deployed to with like security patches, right? It's the one.
But if we say that we have these continuous pipelines,
Mhm.
that means that it is continuous. So it needs to go from staging to Canary. So whatever is deployed on staging will have to find its way on Canary. So then you have the same problem. Maybe it's
Yeah,
not
I
going to
agree.
change as
Yeah.
frequently as staging, but it's definitely going to change frequently.
Yeah, if we have a continuous pipeline, if we're deploying master to Canary, we have the same problem
Yeah.
there. But I think if we're just talking about master on staging and then promotions to Canary where we take changes, after that, then it's less of an issue. But we would have to cut off staging from the public internet, and I don't think this is doable without. Well,
VPN or whatever else.
yeah, we're gonna need something.
For the whole engineering, which is going to be painful.
Unless we can use HTTP basic auth in front with the shared password, like
No, secure.
security. Hey, I hear a lot of defense in depth. It's like just one layer.
Yeah.
It's a very thin layer, but it's a layer. Yeah, I don't know, man. Like
I know.
actually, yeah, it's not that uncommon to use basic auth for like an environment like this. Actually, at least in other places I've worked, small places, maybe not GitLab size of GitLab, but
maybe there is an argument to be made that we need to do something like this because of this reason, because of the security patching reasons.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. This.
No wonder why everyone works in private. It's way easier, man. It's super easy, right? Like you don't have to diverge, you just merge whatever the hell you want. But this is why this challenge is so exciting, honestly. How to do it in public, but not really when it comes to edge cases. Honestly, I think a single code base in GitLab Rails would help immensely, lower the difficulty level of this, because now you need to think about 4 repositories versus not even 2, 1 that you would be needing to use. 2, I guess, because we have one on dev.gitlab.org and one on .com. Okay, so let's talk about the version stuff. So, Jarv, you posted some items in the document saying linking the versions, but the versions are not enough. Like Semver versions are not enough. We need SHAs, because these versions are going to go away as soon as we start deploying from nightly packages. These versions are going to be looking they're going to be looking differently.
Yeah, I figured that these are like the tagged versions and that these will be SHAs for nightly builds, but they will be, right?
Yeah. So where are we picking those versions from to push into Prometheus? Do you know?
Yeah, I do. This file-based metric that we use for the version dashboard is the parsed output of DPKG. It was kind of a joke when I did it, and now it's like something we depend on. It's funny. Like I think it's a total hack. It's a cron job that does a DPKG and parses the output of it and gives you the omnibus version that's installed as a file-based metric. We could extend that cron job to pull out the individual component versions, and as long as those files have the SHA or the semantic version or whatever, we can just expose those to Prometheus.
So if you, I mean, you know that world runs on hacks and jokes. So
Yeah, right.
if you take a look at opt GitLab, you have a version manifest.json file in the root of that directory in opt GitLab. That one is obviously it's JSON file, and it has all the versions that we ever want, with SHAs, with URLs.
Okay.
So it should be like way easier to parse.
Where is this? Is it var opt GitLab?
No. Opt GitLab version manifest.json. And here's the output of this file. I'll place it.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay, I have it. Yeah, I didn't know this existed. Yeah, so we could just transform this into metrics that Prometheus scrape, and then we have it centrally for each node.
We should probably do this regardless.
Yeah, it'd be useful.
So if we do that, Skarbek, I pasted this in the doc, so below the picture you can actually see the how it looks. So it has the locked version, which is in our case the version of the nightly deploy. So this is the version of GitLab Rails community edition in this case, SHA that is deployed on GitLab.org. And we have a similar thing for Gitly and all the others, basically. So then it would be just a question of exposing this to wider public. When I say wider public, I mean the company, so that in an event of a problem, they can find out with a single command which version they need to, or which commit they need to branch out from. I think this might be our first step, actually, by the way, guys. Creating, like adding this to Prometheus, maybe possibly creating a chatops command if we want to use chatops for this. If you want to use something else, I'm fine with that, but I'm spitballing here. Chatops command that will just tell us, you know, chatops run Canary version, chatops run Canary staging, or chatops run staging version, right? To print out all of the SHAs that we have currently deployed. And while that is being done, we can work on changes that are required to tag a commit, right? We have an issue for that, tag a release from commit, not from a tag. And once we have those two things, I think it's a matter of adding a schedule in our repository that will continuously trigger a build and deploy to staging automatically. This is, the last one is 2 minutes of work. The previous one is a bit more. And Jarv, you already say that we have, you're already saying that we have things in place for pushing things to Prometheus. We just need to change from parsing apt to parsing a file, JSON file.
Yeah, that's going to be straightforward and will be fairly useful.
Okay, and then we can start enabling this and starting to see how things break. We can then pause it and continue with our current workflow that we have, right? With tagging and so on. But then as we enable again and figure out new breakages, we can try and introduce this. It's not going to be a smooth, I expect. It's going to be a bit.
I was kind of I was sort of joking about this basic auth thing, but now that I think about it, like you could also envision for the staging environments like a chatops command that would allow us to turn it off and on and rotate the password. And you know, we have a security release, then we protect staging with like a basic auth layer, and the password's different every time. You can ask chatouts what the password is. That could work in place of a VPN, but I think it probably would give us enough. I think we probably want to not allow like only GitLab users should have SSH keys, and we might need to change the configuration for that. But if you cut off HTTPS access, that pretty much cuts it off everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, do users need access to this, or is it just we just need to set up a QA job to hit this instance?
Yeah, the problem is that many people are hitting staging from many different IP addresses for QA, so they need a way to get to it.
For manual QA, yeah.
Yeah, and actually for GitLab QA as well, because that's being run from runners, which
true.
You know, so we need a way. Maybe we need a way to like have a way to query what the password is securely, and you know, I don't know.
Jar, can you create a design document for this one, because we'll need to discuss this with security team.
Yeah.
Maybe they are receptive to this. I think it also like alleviates some of the pressure they have to deliver a VPN. I mean, not completely, but at least
you can check in. Yeah, I mean, if they're moving along with that, then it's probably worth waiting. But if they're not, then maybe this will be.
I don't want to wait for anything, Jar. Like,
yeah, no.
Time passes. It's February already.
Yeah.
So can you sit down and create a design document just to propose this, and let's see what kind of reaction we get. If we get a good reaction, we can move with it. It's actually, I know you joked about it, but actually I can see a benefit of it.
Yeah. Even for dev as well, right? I mean, I think and
in dev we cannot, because we have a bunch of builds depending on pulling registry items from dev.
Yeah, but registry could be different, right?
Ops for sure.
Yeah. You know, we have the same problem for registry on ops as well. I think that could be an issue there. But registry is a separate domain, right? So you could leave registry open. It's fairly unlikely that we haven't. I mean, this is a Docker registry, so they have, you know, like we don't develop those in private. We just take from
whatever is public. True.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, I'll write something
we're considering. Up. Yeah, we're considering in the doc.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I really don't have the energy to think about compliance right now. Creating approval steps. I think my brain is fried. I'll think about that soon. Because this feels like we are introducing a new item because we don't currently have it. We are going to need to introduce it, but this is already hard enough. All right, let's talk rollback. So I think rollback is simple on Canary because we don't do post-deploy migrations. So the rollback would be roll back all of the nodes, then roll back Italy. Would we be rolling back the migrations, online migrations?
On
Canary?
So the assumption has always been that we don't roll back migrations unless something has gone horribly wrong. And to date, nothing has gone horribly wrong, which requires rolling back migrations.
True. Okay. So we basically say migrations are taken out of this requirement for now. We want to roll back, but without touching migrations. Okay, that makes sense. So basically our rollback should be just simple rolling back the nodes and then rolling back Italy. So just making sure that order is correct so that we don't cause more damage.
Mhm.
But what happens in production? Do we do the same?
I'm kind of, I know you don't like it as much as I do, but I do kind of like think we would be better off delaying post-deploy migrations until the next deploy. And I think the main issue with this is that you kind of don't wrap up a release until you're done with everything, right? And maybe like I don't fully, maybe I don't fully understand all your criticisms of this approach.
Yeah, well, the problem that we have experienced in the past with post-deploy migrations is they are were known to cause a lot of load on the database.
Yeah.
They are caused to be, they have been known to be unoptimized. So if we delay this, depends on the delay. But let's say we delay this until the next release, whatever the next release is. We run into a situation where people already moved on. So just doing the context switch of understanding what's happening right now and how do we actually fix this and then release this adds another level of items that needs to be tracked. What we are doing right now is we do it right now. We do the post-deployment migrations. If something goes wrong, we need to handle it right then and there, and we need to fix the problem within a certain amount of time that it takes to develop this. But it really depends much on what do you consider the next release on production, because if we are talking about this continuous pipeline that will mean that it will take 2-3 days for things to arrive on production, I might be okay with keeping the post-deploy migrations for a couple of days instead of, like a whole month.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't actually thinking a whole month. I was actually thinking before the next RC. So the first step we do is we upgrade the deploy box and rerun the regular migrations. I would change that to the first thing we would do is we would do post-deploy migrations at the current version. Then we would upgrade the deploy box, and then we would do the regular migrations. So basically, it'd be the first step would be to do post-deploy migrations at whatever version is currently running.
So how do we know which change introduced the problem in case there is a problem? Is it a post-deploy migration that now changed something, or a new version, or a new migration?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, so you're talking about like a 1 to 2 week delay right now.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Like, I mean, it's just scary to me that I think the only reason why we haven't had problems with rollbacks is because we don't do them. But if we start doing rollbacks, I have a feeling this is going to bite us. I don't know.
I mean, Yorick says that post-deploy migrations I mean, he says that to keep things simple, it would be best to assume that by default, we cannot safely revert database migrations.
Any database migrations?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's impossible to deal with.
I know.
I don't know. Well, okay. So let's just have this discussion later.
Another time. Okay.
Yeah, another time. That's fine.
Okay. Okay.
So for rollback, I think it's pretty simple. We just initiate a new deploy with the old version. We flip Giddily so that it's in front of the fleet instead of behind of the fleet. And that's it.
You want to say it's behind the fleet instead of in front of the fleet, because right now it's in front of the fleet when you're deploying.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was looking at it like
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
left
Okay.
to right, but yeah, whatever. Yeah, it needs to be after the fleet instead of
Yeah.
before the fleet.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go with that and assume the database migrations, we are not touching them at the moment, or the order, we are not touching at the moment. This is the best information we have at the moment, I think. I think we'll need a bit of a write-up for deployer as well, or rather not deployer, for rollbacks as well. What information we have, and what do we want to do, and what are the problems we anticipate, and how are we going to resolve them?
Yeah.
Oh my God, my brain is fried, guys. I don't know about you. Skarbek, are you okay? You're awfully quiet there. Did you decide to run for the door yet?
I think due to my lack of having been on this team for so long has prevented me from being helpful in any of this discussion.
But was any of this helpful to you at least?
It's more mind-blowing and confusing. I think I just have more questions about how we do things in general before I'm able to ponder whether it's good or bad or what have you.
All right. So in order for you not to leave without a single task, I want to hear those questions. Maybe not right now, but you have the document. I want to see the questions you have in the document.
I'll come up with a list. I want to schedule some one-on-one chats with people, so maybe I'll ask some of those questions during that time, or maybe our one-on-one tomorrow.
Anything that is a more public arena would be great, because then we can share this with others in the team so they know that we are not slacking off, but we're just humans. But questions first would be really good. Jarv, I'll set up the issues to create the version, to push the version to Prometheus. And I'll also set up an issue to, what did we say? Where was it?
We were thinking about, no, I was talking about the basic auth stuff. We were talking about the new environment.
The new environment. So I'll create an issue for that to create a new box in between staging and prod.
Yeah.
And there's another one to like query that data so developers have a way to pluck it easily.
Exactly. All right. So it's 3 issues. I'll set up those. And for you, you have a design doc for the HTTP basic auth and a write-up for rollbacks.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. I'll just add the rollback stuff to the design doc. I'm sorry, to the deployer docs that I'm going to work on tomorrow. Yeah. Okay.